And joining us via Skype to talk about the implications of further sanctioning is Professor of Finance at the Fuqua School of Business, Duke University, Campbell Harvey. Campbell, it is so good to have you back on the forum.
Great to be on.
Hi there, Campbell. We have a few questions for you.
Sure.
I'm going to start. Can you think of any past examples where economic sanctions have produced the desired results?
There are plenty of examples. The most recent example is a spectacular result that happened in June of 2012, where we imposed punitive sanctions on Iran in the form that they couldn't transfer any money between banks, their banks and foreign banks, and it effectively drove them back to the table. It was extremely effective. So if you go this route today, it can lead to success.
Well, we take a look at Russia's situation here, and we hear that, yeah, it's going to affect the Russian economy in the long run. Correct me if I'm wrong, Campbell, but yesterday, the Russian stock market overall was up a couple of points. I mean, is this, when do these sanctions really start to affect the Russian economy to the point where, as if public opinion makes a difference there, it will have some impact?
Well, this is really important, that this is kind of round two, and the first couple of rounds are pretty mild sanctions. But what really counts is Putin's ability to extrapolate where we are heading. So each round you want to increase the severity of the sanctions, and then he can reasonably extrapolate forward to see what the end game actually is. The end game is very ugly for Russia, and it's ugly for the chances of Putin remaining in control. So it's not as much the sanctions that are imposed today that actually counts. What it is the expected level of severity that we can reasonably think could happen in the future. That's what's really going to impact his thinking. It is a very effective deterrent.
Would you say Russia's equipped to deal with the sanctions that affect its exports?
Well, one thing that's totally different with Russia today versus Russia during the Cold War, the Soviet Union was so large that effectively they just traded amongst themselves. So they didn't really depend on global trade. So today, it's a completely different story, where 29% of Russian GDP is based upon exports. And that's much larger than the US. So the US is about 14%. So Russia is hooked into the global system. And to disrupt that, you can imagine a severe sanction, the most extreme sanction would kill their exports. That would just send them into a depression. And that's not good for the people of Russia, and it's definitely not good for the probability of Putin hanging on.
And how do you think these sanctions are going to affect investors at this stage?
Well, again, it's not just the sanctions today. And I think what you mean is the multiple rounds of expected sanctions. So people say, well, the sanctions today are pretty mild, and that's true. It's targeting individuals and a few institutions. The key is that people make their decisions based upon the expected outcomes. So if I'm a U.S. investor thinking of building a plant in Russia right now, it's going to require a $100 million greenfield type of investment. I don't as much care about 45 individuals that are being sanctioned right now. What I care about is what's going to happen over the next round, the round after that, the round after that, and basically just screams risk, and I'm not going to invest. So the money today is not going into Russia. The only money that's going into Russia right now are the Russians that are repatriating their funds because they think their funds are going to be frozen in Western countries.
Campbell, it was very interesting when the president announced the sanctions that the U.S. was imposing on the Russian Federation. He talked about, or mention was made of specific individuals associated with Vladimir Putin, but the president went to great lengths to say, now we're not imposing anything on Putin himself. And yet there is a school of thought that Vladimir Putin in terms of investment, let me put that in quotes, has purloined billions of dollars. Will that ever come to pass, or is this president how can I put this, too passive to take that approach directly at Putin and his, quote, investments, end quote?
So again, the key is for Putin to be able to extrapolate what might happen in the future. So this is only round two. And it is obvious that we've got the crosshairs on Putin's wealth also. So I think that, again, this is just a game of chess going on right now. You always have to think ahead. What are the next, not just the next move, but multiple moves ahead. Putin fully realizes that his assets are at risk also. And the strategy right now is to target his friends to try to put some pressure on him. But Putin understands this, and this will likely provide an effective deterrent.
Thank you, Professor Harvey. While we have you here, we'd also like to ask you about the latest on the Comcast-Time Warner merger. Comcast plans to divest 3.9 million clients to their competitor, Charter Communications Incorporated, to reduce their dominant market share. Is this enough to appease antitrust regulators?
It's not even clear that it's enough. It's kind of very similar to the Ukraine Russia situation, in that you kind of offer something initially, and then you get some feedback. They might have to actually go further. The key thing that is in everybody's interest, except for Comcast Time Warner, is that we want competition. We don't want consumers paying monopoly prices and getting poor service for their cable and internet. Right now, in my opinion, we're at a transition point in the U.S. We really lack the high-speed internet infrastructure. Once that actually is put in place, where we have gigabit internet, then this whole game that they're playing is at great risk. But right now, it is another game of chess with the regulator. Toss something out to them, and hopefully, they'll approve the deal.
Campbell, Harvey, it's been interesting to note the bipartisan nature of stepping back. We spoke with some of my old colleagues in Congress, and they said, well, Time Warner and these guys, if this is what the marketplace will bear. And of course, much has been made of the lobbying efforts of Comcast in terms of both sides, but especially the Obama administration. Is it conceivable that this opening volley, this seeding of close to 4 million customers, will be enough given the prevailing mood at the White House and on Capitol Hill?
My guess it's not enough. But the key thing is that it's in everybody's interest to have competition. Competition is what this is all about. You get good service at a fair price. And what I worry about is this extensive lobbying. And also, you have to worry about the regulator. Is the regulator doing the right thing? There are some serious trade-offs here where some people will, be forced to switch to Charter, and they actually didn't want to switch in the first place. So the regulatory oversight could be hit or miss, and this is a giant deal. Again, I think in the longer term, this is going to be less important because other players are going to come in and disrupt this industry severely.
Campbell Harvey, Professor of Finance, Fuqua Business School, Trinity College at Duke University, to get the entire name of the school in there. We thank you very much for your time, Campbell.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your input.
Okay, thank you.
And Francesca, as always, good to have you here.
Judy.
Interesting questions about sanctions on the Russian Federation and possible antitrust implications for the Comcast-Time Warner deal. What do you think about what's going on? We'd love to hear from you. You can tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, #AmericasForum. Also, you can email us, our address, connect@newsmaxtv.com. And of course, there is Facebook, facebook.com/Newsmax.